So it's now been about 30 years since the internet was introduced to the masses. By all accounts, it seems like this technology has had a pretty significant impact on the world, especially for young people. But what exactly has that impact been? We'll explore just that in today's video. Now, before we get started, it's important to point out that not everyone under the age of 30 was necessarily impacted by the internet in the same way. There are some variables at play here. For example, where you live still matters. If you grew up in a wealthier country with better access to technology, then you were likely impacted more than someone who grew up somewhere where the internet was less accessible. Of course, this is no longer really a thing nowadays. The internet is basically everywhere, and most people under the age of 30 have had relatively equal access to it. But this wasn't always the case. And even if you controlled for things like access to the internet, there would still be differences based on socioeconomic factors. A child of wealthy parents would have had different access to computers and gadgets than, say, a child of poor parents. This, again, isn't really a thing anymore. In fact, you can get a $100 smartphone in basically any country on Earth. So if we wanted to, we could lump all young people into one big bucket and say that they've all been impacted by the internet in the same way. But this wouldn't really be accurate. Even today, young people from different parts of the world and different socioeconomic backgrounds are still impacted by the internet differently. For example, studies have shown that young people in Asia-Pacific tend to use the internet more than their counterparts in Europe or North America, are also more likely to be what's called heavy users, which means they spend a lot of time on the internet every single day. Now, there are a lot of theories as to why this is the case. One popular one is that young people in Asia-Pacific tend to be more digitally native than those in other parts of the world. This is because they grew up with the internet and smartphones and other technologies, such they're more comfortable using them. It's also possible that they simply have more access to these devices than people in other parts of the world. Whatever the reason, though, it's clear that not all young people are impacted by the internet in the same way. But let's pretend that they are for the sake of argument. What has the internet done to them? Well, it's difficult to say for sure, but we can make some educated guesses. One thing that's for sure is that the internet has made young people smarter. I mean, how could it not have? The internet is essentially the largest library that has ever existed. Every piece of knowledge that has ever been recorded is available online, and anyone with an internet connection can access it. It's no surprise, then, that studies have shown that young people today are smarter than previous generations. Of course, there's a lot more to intelligence than just raw book smarts. Emotional intelligence is just as important, if not more so. And the internet has actually helped with this as well. The internet has forced young people to become more emotionally intelligent in order to succeed. It's because the internet has made the world a much more competitive place. Back when our parents were growing up, the world was much more simple. If you wanted a job, you just had to be smarter than the other applicants. If you wanted to find a mate, you just had to be more attractive than the other options. Nowadays, though, things have changed. You need to be smarter than the other applicants just to get your foot in the door. Once you're in, though, it doesn't really matter as much. You can learn the job as you go along. The same goes for finding a mate. Sure, it's nice to be attractive, but there are other qualities that are just as important, if not more so. Things like emotional intelligence, social intelligence, and even financial intelligence. Young people have had to develop these qualities in order to succeed in the modern world, and the internet has helped them do that. The internet has also made young people more open-minded. That's because the internet has exposed them to so many different cultures and ways of thinking. When our parents were growing up, the only people they really interacted with were the people in their town or city. They might have traveled a bit, but not nearly as much as young people do today. And when they did travel, they didn't have the internet to help them learn about the places they were going to. As such, they weren't nearly as exposed to different cultures and ways of thinking as young people are today. The internet has allowed young people to connect with people from all over the world. They can learn about different cultures and ways of thinking, and they can challenge their own beliefs. This has made them more open-minded than previous generations. The internet has also made young people more tolerant. That's because the internet has exposed them to so much diversity. When our parents were growing up, the world was a much more homogeneous place. There were certainly pockets of diversity, but it was nothing compared to what we see today. The internet has allowed young people to connect with people from all walks of life. They can learn about different cultures and ways of thinking, and they can challenge their own beliefs. This has made them more tolerant than previous generations. Of course, the internet hasn't just had a positive impact on young people. It's also made them more narcissistic. That's because the internet has given them the ability to curate their own image. With the rise of social media, young people can control how they're perceived by the world. They can put their best foot forward, and they can carefully craft their public image. This has led to a rise in narcissism among young people. It used to be that if you wanted to meet new people, you had to go out and do things. You had to put yourself out there and be vulnerable. Nowadays, though, you can do things like catfish people online. You can create an online persona that's not really who you are, and you can deceive people into thinking whatever you want. This has led to a rise in narcissism among young people. The internet has also made young people more depressed. It's because the internet has given them something to compare themselves to. With the rise of social media, young people can see what everyone else is doing. They can compare themselves to others, and they can feel like they're falling behind. This has led to a rise in depression among young people. We didn't have this problem back when our parents were growing up. Sure, there were some magazines and TV shows that young people could compare themselves to, but they were few and far between. Nowadays, though, it's different. Social media is everywhere, and young people are constantly bombarded with images of other people's lives. This has led to a rise in depression among young people. Of course, there are other potential downsides to the internet as well. Example, it's possible that the internet has made young people more isolated. That's because the internet has given young people the ability to interact with people online rather than in person. When our parents were growing up, the only way to interact with people was in person. This meant that they had to go out and socialize. Nowadays, though, young people can just stay home and interact with people online. This has led to a rise in social isolation among young people. That being said, it's important to note that not everyone under the age of 30 has been impacted by the internet in the same way. Some have thrived in the internet age, while others have struggled. It really depends on a variety of factors, including personality type, socioeconomic status, and access to education. So what has been the impact of the internet on the world youth? Well, it's difficult to say for sure. The internet has both benefited and harmed young people in a number of ways. Ultimately, it's up to each individual to decide how they want to use the internet and what impact they want it to have on their lives. And that's all for this video. I hope you enjoyed today's exploration into how the internet has impacted the world youth. If you did, please make sure to hit that like button and leave me a comment down below. And if you want to see more videos like this, please consider subscribing. I'll see you guys next time.